I guess this is just more proof that our nation is healing itself. Many supporters agree that these Trump tariffs are exactly what we need to protect American workers, not to mention the American people. And looking at things, you could definitely make the case that Canada and Mexico have taken advantage of us for years with cheap labor and weak trade policies. Well, it's time to level the playing field, huh? The White House on Friday just confirmed that President Donald Trump will implement tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said that Trump will impose a 25% levy on imports from Mexico and Canada and a 10% tariff on imports from China beginning on Saturday in response to the illegal fentanyl that has been sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans. And not just that, guys. President Trump also doubled down on its threat of 100% tariffs against the Brics nations trying to threaten the US dollar's global dominance. In Trump's words, they can go find another sucker nation. More proof that the nation is healing. Former moderator of Meet the Press and longtime NBC political analyst Chuck Todd just announced that he is also leaving the network. He joins the parade of high-profile news anchors and political pundits who have left major networks as we go into President Trump's second term, including NBC's Hoda Kotb, CNN's Chris Wallace, and Fox News' Neil Cavuto. So the question now is, when is Joy Reid and Rachel Maddow going to be joining the leagues, right? Last but not least, Trump's legal team just filed a notice of appeal for his conviction in his Manhattan trial, meaning we're that much closer to overturning those 34 counts of falsifying business records that Trump had labeled political lawfare against him. I hope you guys are excited about this because I definitely am. All of this and more in today's video, so stay right there, you guys. By the way, I appreciate you guys hitting the like button. Thank you so much for sharing this video. You guys are amazing. All right, so those Canada and Mexico tariffs. A lot of critics are already saying that these tariffs are going to be raising the prices for Americans. Well, no one better to break them down than multi-millionaire investor and Canadian himself, Kevin O'Leary. Here, watch this.
My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. We're bringing them down very substantially, even from the original Trump tax cuts. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply, you will have to pay a tariff.
All right, let's bring in Kevin O'Leary, chairman of O'Leary Ventures and a Shark Tank star and investor. Kevin, good to have you with us today. A lot to ask you about. There's also some things that are crossing the wires that are coming out from the White House with regard to the Fed that I want to ask you about as well. But let's start with that. What did you think about what the president had to say about U.S. manufacturing and what companies can expect if they don't make it here?
Well, the key to translating Trump language is to understand noise and signal. So what he basically saying there is, look, and these messages are different for different countries. For example, Mexico, we're going to build a wall. That's coming for sure. But we also want you to make sure you stop sending illegal immigrants from yours and other countries, or you're going to be tariffed. That's the message to the Mexicans. To the Canadians, start spending on security at the northern border and pay your 2% to NATO and stop sending fentanyl from China over the border into the United States, or you're going to face tariffs. That's the signal there. To the Germans, if you don't start making more cars in America, we're going to tariff the you-know-what out of your cars coming here. And it on and on for each country. It's the tariff signal, if you want to call it that, is a negotiating leverage tool because Trump commands the largest market on earth. There's no market larger than the United States. For China, it's a whole different kettle of fish. We're in an economic war with China, and that's going to be the most interesting negotiation, whether it's a combination of tariffs and threat of military control, all kinds of stuff there. But he's starting with a message that's very clear. Get in line, do what you said you were going to do, or you're going to face a wicked barrier to come into the world's largest market, and it's going to affect your economy. I heard it loud and clear.
So yeah, these tariffs are a way to send a message to these other countries. America is back, and it's time for them to get in line because finally, right? A president who puts America first. Now, what the mainstream media doesn't say is that these tariffs will bring back manufacturing jobs and it will reduce our reliance on foreign imports. Now, if companies want to sell here, then they should produce here. And for Mexico and for Canada, they need to get their act together. As Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt described it, these are promises made and these are promises kept by the president because these countries are exporting fentanyl into our borders and getting Americans hooked on this stuff. Now, I think you guys have all heard the stories, the fentanyl crisis in the United States, well, these tariffs could very well help out with that. But apart from that, they should help out with the imbalances with our trading partners, because Trump also signed an executive order titled the America First Trade Policy, which instructed the government officials to investigate the causes of our country's large and persistent annual trade deficits in goods, as well as the economic and national security implications. David French, the National Retail Federation's executive vice president of government relations, also agrees. He said the United States needs a review of our trade relationships to be sure that these relationships are structured to achieve fair, balanced, and effective outcomes for American workers and for businesses. He also made the point that tariffs are taxes paid by Americans, and any new tariff tax increases should be methodically and effectively deployed toward only the most strategic goods. So, undertaking a strategic assessment of trade priorities is an important first step, meaning they should be looking into the best ways to implement these tariffs without harming the average American. You know what I mean? And yeah, it makes sense, right, guys? And I'd like to believe that that's exactly what the Trump administration is doing. So let's just see how it all plays out, shall we? Now, honestly, guys, what I'm a little bit more interested in is the grave warning the president gave to the Brics nations. Now, just for a little bit of context, the Brics nations, or I should say Brics, stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, though the bloc also includes several other countries as well. They have been threatening a Brics currency for so long now. It's supposed to go up against the US dollar as the world's world currency. But, well, Trump certainly had a few choice words to say about the matter. Here's his post from Truth Social. The idea that the Brics countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. We're going to create a commitment from these seemingly hostile countries that they will neither create a new Brics currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful US economy. They can go find another sucker nation. There is no chance that the Brics will replace the US dollar in international trade or anywhere else, and any country that tries should say hello to tariffs and goodbye to America. In short, 100% tariffs for those nations if they don't back off this Brics currency idea. And these are a lot of countries, mind you. Now, apart from the 5 that I included in the name, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, and Indonesia are also members of the bloc. Brazil even suggested that Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil producer, is a Brics member. But Saudi Minister of Economy and Planning, Faisal Al-Ibrahim, he recently said that while the nation has been invited into Brics, it is assessing before making a decision. So I guess President Trump is nipping this in the bud before Brics gets too big for its britches. You know what I mean, guys? Drop a quick yes in the comments down below. Hit the like button if you guys agree with Trump's America First approach to these trade relations. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our updates like this one. All right, so if you guys are all set with that, let's jump back in. So Chuck Todd is leaving NBC. They just announced it, and we're taking a look because this guy's been pretty interesting to say the least. One of his last takes on the show was about the Hunter Biden pardon. He went full scorched earth. Here, check this out.
Joe Biden made in and around the pardon, where he essentially used the exact same rhetoric that Donald Trump uses about the justice system. That, you know, it was biased against Hunter Biden. I mean, you could have literally said, I could have said to you, did Donald Trump say this or did Biden say this? And a lot of people might have said, oh, this is something Trump would say. It's not something we were used to Joe Biden saying about the rule of law and about the justice system. Well, now you have, so forget who started it. You have the leading Democrat in America and the leading Republican in America both agreeing on one thing. The Justice Department has been politicized. That is absolutely that is long-term damaging. This is no longer short-term damaging. This is no longer one election at a time.
Todd also criticized NBC News for hiring former Republican National Committee Chair Ronna McDaniel as an analyst in March 2024. Todd said many of the network's dealings with the RNC under McDaniel's leadership had been met with gaslighting and character assassination. He also pointed out how journalists at the networks weren't too happy with McDaniel's hiring. Sure enough, they got McDaniel's contract terminated less than a week later. So yeah, pretty divisive media figure to say the least, huh? Inflammatory too, if I might add. But Trump effortlessly keeps breaking these fools. And well, It looks like the mainstream media is dying right before our very eyes. Now, like I mentioned, it's not just him. NBC's Hoda Kotb, CNN's Chris Wallace, and Fox News' Neil Cavuto all said goodbyes as Trump's second term began. Now, for Todd, he says the reason he is ready to move on is because he thinks that the media has a lot of work to do to win back the trust of Americans. And the national media isn't the place that's going to be able to do it. So what do you guys think? I mean, I trust the community that we've built right here on YouTube. No media BS for us. Just the straight up facts and what we really think about what's really happening in America, right, guys? All right, so moving on, another issue that Trump's team is taking care of, we have the hush money conviction in Manhattan. The latest there is that his newly minted legal team has officially just filed a notice of appeal for his conviction, which found him guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records. Leading the team is attorney Robert J. Giuffre Jr., and he said in a comment that President Donald J. Trump's appeal is important for the rule of law, New York's reputation as a global business, financial, and legal center, as well as for the presidency and all public officials, and that the misuse of criminal law by the Manhattan DA to target President Trump sets a dangerous precedent, and they look forward to the case being dismissed on appeal. For sure, guys, even though the Manhattan court found him guilty and gave him a nonsense sentencing, Trump has repeatedly maintained his innocence in the case. In fact, the president calls it an example of lawfare promoted by Democrats in an effort to hurt his efforts ahead of the November 2024 election. Trump had also previously said that he will appeal the conviction, including earlier this month when he said on Truth Social that justice will prevail. So clearly, the rot goes pretty freaking deep in the Justice Department, and Trump is wasting no time cleaning house. Within hours of President Trump taking office, his team started shaking things up at the Department of Justice, reassigning at least 15 top officials and moving them into less influential roles. One of the biggest names on the list, George Takis. He's a top figure in the National Security Division and a key player in the outrageous 2022 raid on Mar-a-Lago. He and others have now been transferred to the new Office of Sanctuary Cities Enforcement, which is focused on cracking down on local laws that interfere with real immigration enforcement. Now, let's be real, guys. Hard left bureaucrats are going to act like this is the equivalent of getting shoved into a basement office next to the boiler. And hey, if they don't like it, McDonald's is always hiring, aren't they? But for sure, this is legitimate, necessary work for those so-called nonpartisan civil servants that they claim to be. Let's be real. After 4 years of Biden's DOJ going full weaponization mode, launching political lawfare against Trump, trying to throw the man in prison, bankrupt him, and then shift public opinion against him, this kind of cleanup is long overdue. Oh, and let's not forget about what the DOJ wasn't doing, actually investigating Hunter Biden and the rest of the Biden family for what many experts described as blatant influence peddling during Joe's VP years. Not to mention the FBI's massive free speech scandal where the agency straight up pressured social media companies to silence any sort of dissent or disagreement about COVID. So yeah, I see this as Trump delivering on yet another one of his campaign promises, purging the DOJ of partisans who abuse their power and undermine the rule of law. And this is probably just the beginning. I mean, there's a lot of rot that needs to go before the DOJ is truly blind to politics and focus on justice, not just protecting the people in power. Now, let me know what you guys think. Is President Trump on the right course here with these tariffs and the DOJ shakeup? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments down below. We'll circle back to this in a future update. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tap that notification bell so you do not miss out on our next videos when they drop. Now, we've also got some suggested videos to check out once this one ends. Definitely worth checking those out as well. Appreciate you guys hitting the like button and subscribing. We'll see you next time.